think Mysterious has to kind of really take it to Jambray. I think if he kind of sits back and he allows Jambray to kind of steam ahead, like he doesn't, if he uses his removal too early, that kind of thing.
The problem is whether he can get a hand that can even do that. Like, I think you're right. I think he's got to just try and draw into things that keep the board under control incredibly early. But look at this. I mean, what do you even do?
What you do is you get hit in the face for roughly 12 by Enchanted Raven into Mark of Yasharaj, because there is not going to be a clean answer to this for a long time based on this hand.
So that's not going to help.
That is also not going to help. I mean, is there merit in coining out just the Ooze just to contest this board?
So, coin Ooze, you're a little bit vulnerable to Living Roots, you're a little bit vulnerable to Wrath, but Wrath is often one of the cards that is cut from Beast Druid. I'm not sure if we saw it in the previous series from Jumbra. And most importantly, like, you still don't really do anything against the worst case scenario, which is Mark of Yasharaj. But having done nothing here, and now the Living Roots has been picked up, which means the Ooze is no form of contestation at all. And I think 12 might even be on the low side in terms of estimates for how much damage this 4/4 is going to get.
It depends if this Power of the Wild does 18 at the same time or not. Yeah, looking really bleak already, and not even going to deal with the Ooze, instead just choosing to go wide here and get the extra 2/2 on the board.
I'm actually not sure I like this, because you potentially... Hellfire is bad, but that uses the coin as well. But also Demon Wrath is a card that we saw mulliganed away in the opening if Jambray was paying attention. I think removing and just keep on jamming with the 4/4 is actually resistant to a lot more counterplay, potentially from the Reno lock.
And also, I don't think the numbers add up. Like, if you Living Roots there and just play the Power of the Wild as a 3/2, instead of trading in one of your 2/2s, which only leaves a 2/2 behind, you actually get an extra power or an extra attack on the board anyway.
Sure.
So maybe that was a little bit ambitious there, but either way, he's at a 15 already.
Mysteriously starting to get those removal spells now, Shadow Flame as well in hand. I think Hellfire was extremely important. Jambray was getting a little bit out of control, but you can see the sheer aggression coming out from Jambray. He says, oh, okay, you want to beat aggro? You want to tailor your decks towards beating aggro? I'm just going to continuously put threat after threat on the board and see if you can answer it.
Your swipe hero power into swipe hero power is the 10 damage that's going to be required if he wants to go that way, just with this play alone.
Well, he's also just setting up lethal directly, so if Violet Teacher sticks around, then he just finishes the game with swipe potentially on the next turn. So after a little bit of criticism on his previous play, I think this was not the easiest play to spot.
Correct,
but I think it's absolutely correct in this situation. So Jambray definitely still finding himself some answers here. Down to 9, lethal setup on the board, coin already used, coin Reno is not a factor. I think, well, does the Twilight Guardian do enough here? I think it just about does, huh?
Just about did. Is it still enough? He's still alive.
Still alive, yeah.
I think he just survives, yeah.
But this is one of those situations where people like yourself will known that people like me, like even if Reno is drawn next turn, there'll be 10 or 12 damage coming in the turn after, rendering it almost useless anyway.
And this is one of the frustrating things about Reno Lock, is that if you don't draw him, then you can struggle against aggressive decks. And it was my worry when Mysterious said he was tailoring towards beating aggression.
So the value trade here leaves him open to that Demon Wrath potentially again just a little bit, but he beats Demon Wrath at this point, so I don't think he's too worried about it. The only thing he is worried about is Reno Jackson, so therefore he has maintained the maximum amount of power on the board against that Reno. Absolutely the correct decision this time, and there you have it. The aggro deck beat down on the Reno lock that did not draw its Reno. Always a possibility. Jambray will be incredibly happy just to get that first game over and done with and in the bank.
Yeah, for sure. Once again, just starting early, using aggression, and Mysterious had no answer, unfortunately. I mean, okay, he used the Hellfire there. Do you think perhaps he should have saved it and not used it with the coin, or was that too risky with the amount of power that was on board?
I think there's a very real chance he was just dead if he didn't Hellfire that turn, so I think he absolutely had to do it. I think perhaps the bigger question is whether Jambray lined that turn up correctly against the consideration of the AoE. It ended up not mattering, which is perhaps an argument towards him, where he said, I win the game this turn if you don't have Hellfire. If you do have Hellfire or Demon Wrath, I'm still fine. Like, I just drop Teacher and keep going. So he took the risk, it ended up panning out just fine for him in the end. Really, really comfortable first game.
And it's whether the other deck's going to do exactly the same against this Reno lock as well. I mean, we saw it Mysterious brought this deck last season. He used it at the group stages, then he brought it to finals. It did kind of struggle at finals as well. The main difference was he had a youthful Brewmaster in it last season to kind of help those heavy control matchups, but he doesn't have it this season, as I have seen him play it previously in group stages. He is going to queue it up once again with the Dragons, and it's whether he can kind of just get in range of being able to use that Leroy combo and just survive long enough. Typically, mid-range Shaman, the games can go on long enough for that to happen.
Yeah, there is one question here which Bor and I were kind of joking about, but it is an actual fact as well. How good will players like Jumbo actually be with mid-range Shaman? Like, it gets banned all the time, people don't ladder with it because it's tedious, boring, they know it's going to get banned. How much practice will people actually bother to have with the Shaman deck?
Well, I think, that is why mid-range Shaman is so frustrating, because it is a deck that you can bring in a tournament lineup with really just a cursory amount of practice. It's not like that difficult to play. Obviously any deck to play perfectly is extremely hard in this game, but you used the word forgiving earlier on, and mid-range Shaman perhaps the most forgiving deck in the game, in that it can cover some of the cracks in your play just through its overall power level.
I honestly think this is one of the better matchups for Mysterious against the Shaman, to be honest. I mean, you can see the amount of removal he's already got in his hand. The Demon Wrath coming out as well. So there's lots of answers to the board presence that the Shaman does build up. And looking in the hand of Jambore, I mean, it's looking pretty dire right now.
It really is. And also, vitally, in this deck from Mysterious, Bookworm. Bookworm is enormous against mid-range Shaman. Thunderbluff Valiant is the dream, but even outside of that, Flame Tongues, Manatide Totems, Totem Golems, all of these targets, you're guaranteed to get value from it at some point. So it's such a huge swing card potential in the matchup, but straight away you can see just some of this power. Like, he had nothing going on. Totem pass, and then suddenly this.
Just to point out, though, this is a better spot than he'd been in if he's playing against the Zoo deck that he banned out instead. So,
very true.
A bit of a nod to his ban strategy there, that this is at least a better effort for him here.
Well, there is the Bookworm that you were speaking of, but obviously you need something to trigger it. He does mean he can use the Netherspire Historian here to search for more dragons if he wants to, but obviously that can be an option a little bit later. I think dealing with the threats on board is more of a priority here.
Yeah, and here is the important point about Reno decks, and the reason why when you're playing a Reno deck, you keep Reno in your opening hand in every single matchup. Because he does not yet have his Reno, he was forced to react to that board. He can't sit back and take 7 because he doesn't have that reliable healing. If he had Reno in his hand already, we might have seen the Netherspire Historian turn come down. He already has a Hellfire and a Demon Wrath in hand that can clear it up eventually, but without access to the Reno already, he's worried about letting his life total drop too low.
If he does get the chance to play this Netherspite with the brand, things could turn around fairly quickly. Every chance of getting a Taunt and a Closer, or a Taunt and an Extras, or something like that.
Or just two more Bookworms.
Two more Bookworms, I guess. Sottle, the Bookworm fan.
Dude, the card's so good, it's just a shame that you have to play a Dragon deck to play it. That's where it falls down, because the card is just objectively nutty in the meta right now. It's just the other 28 cards that you have to put together with it don't quite get there sometimes.
That's twice you've insulted dragons today. I'm pretty sure we won't be seeing you and Kibler together ever
Kibler
again.
will be very mad. So he could coin out the Bookworm here, but you're not getting that value that you once spoke of. You really want to be using it on one of those Thunderbluff Valiants. Instead, he's going to actually go Bran into Historian Netherspite Historian here, and we might be able to see what dragons he can get.
Takes a Twilight Drake over a couple of poor options, but this is a much more difficult decision. Chillmore, a great card against mid-range Shaman, but the other options weren't terrible either. But yeah, definitely don't hate the Chillmore in this situation, just another board clear option. We saw him have a natural Chillmore in his deck as well that he mulliganed away, so with the Demon Wrath, the Hellfire, a Chillmore in his hand, another Chillmore in his deck, as well as Shadow Flame and Twisting Nether, I believe we've seen as well. He's got board clear potential for days.
And that's a better pickup than it might look from our caster vision, because he's picking that and going against the Hex probably. From where he's at, there's a decent chance that just gets hexed. But he's picked it up anyway, deciding that he needs to go for it now, and he should be rewarded for that.
So Fire Elemental in the deck of Jambore. It's something that wasn't in the mid-range kind of Shaman originally, then it kind of, lately it's found its way back in. It's kind of been in and out. Is it a preference for players, or do you think this is the strongest Shaman deck you'd be playing right now?
There's a couple of flex spots in mid-range Shaman, essentially. It's 1 or 2 Manatide totems, then there's also a Horse Rider that floats around, there's Bloodlust or no Bloodlust that floats around, and there's Fire Ellie, no Fire Ellie, and then also Alakir is kind of a fringe thing that's coming back in as well. So from that pool of 4 or 5 cards, players are generally picking 2 or 3, and then that makes the mid-range Shaman deck, along with the other 27 broken nutty cards that just have to be in the deck by default.
And you tend to play the Horse Rider in a situation where you're going to play the mirror match.
Yes.
And you're going to ban out the Shaman, so you probably don't play the Horse Rider. That frees up a spot for something a little bit more value-based, which is this Fire Ellie. So probably the thinking there that you're not going to play a mirror match.
So what are the main considerations here for Mysterious? Is Siphon Soul something he's going to be thinking about, or is that a bit overkill?
Siphon definitely not bad. Fire Ellie has a good shot of being the biggest threat in the deck, other than Ragnaros, which obviously is a huge concern. But whoa! Jambray out of left field with the Lava Burst.
You spoke about flex positions.
Yeah, I mean, apparently Jambray has mixed this up even more. I wonder if we're even looking at perhaps Flame Wreath Faceless in this deck as well, just really trying to ramp up the aggression. But this is something that we spoke about this morning on the way here, which is doing something weird with your Shaman deck, because most of the time it's going to get banned.
Right.
So there's only niche scenarios where your opponents will leave up your Shaman. So your job as a deck builder is to predict what those scenarios are and then counter them with your deck building decisions.
And one of the scenarios here is that your 3 decks are kind of similar, your other 3 decks. So let's make all 4 decks kind of similar and go face with this one as well while we're at it. But not without destroying the fact that this is actually just one of the best decks, it will be best deck in the game. So you don't want to go full on aggro Shaman because you can actually just play a better deck that's still aggressive enough. Yeah. We may even see a Doomhammer lurking in here because there's not really very many Harrisons here today, you wouldn't think.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a decision from a banned Shaman meta where Warrior is not as ever-present as it used to be a few weeks ago either. Then suddenly the weapon destruction goes away as well because of that decision. So suddenly if your Shaman does get left up, then maybe bringing the weapons back in is a good idea. But Jambray, I'm really interested to see where he has gone with this deck. But right now, just Lava Burst, Spirit Claws, Bloodlust, all in hand. He's just absolutely primed to go off with burst damage here. And Mysterious is fully entitled not to plan for Lava Burst in this situation.
Yeah, this is what we were saying about Mysterious's own deck with the Leroy earlier, the Faceless, that he thought he'd take down ball control with this. This is the reverse. He is just going to walk into this Lava Burst.
And I mean, some might say that just dropping Chillmore is fine here, but then of course you're worried about things like Hex, which just completely disregards any sort of play you've just made. Instead, he is going to go for Hellfire and Demon Wrath just to clear this board completely. Very important that he did do so, obviously. As we can see, so much damage, and the Hex did come out as well. So if a Chillmore does come down, there's a great answer to it.
My only slight problem there, going back to the Hex, is if when he picked the Chillmore, I felt he had to play it the next turn. If you're going to pick it, you pick it to gamble on the next turn and try and clear the board. I think otherwise he should have maybe picked one of the Taunt minions.
I think he's trying to engineer a spot here where he can play it and doesn't die immediately to a Hex. So if the Hex comes out, he can still come back afterwards, where, you know, in that position, if he went all in on the Chillmore and the Hex comes down, it's pretty much game over.
I agree. I just think maybe earlier, when he first picked it, maybe the next turn was the time, because now it's just getting harder for him. But anyway, he's gone down this route, and like you say, he's going to try and get other things hexed, and then he'll be able to keep control for the rest of the game if that situation comes up. But that situation looks like it's not going to come up. He's not drawing any of his AoE.
Who's off the top's not too bad, staring at a Spirit Claws. But you've got to be worried about that board. I mean, even if Mysterious is thinking, okay, is he running Bloodlust or not, you always have to presume yes, I find, in these situations.
Yeah, now he's been forced to play the Chillmore.
He is.
And that is just going to be... Is it lethal?
No, he's overloaded, so he can't Hex and Bloodlust in the same turn. Does the Lava Burst get him there? 6 damage Lava Burst, 8, 10, 11. No, that's short as well. So the coining of the Ooze has actually saved Mysterious's life here because of the inability to efficiently take out the Hex minion afterwards.
I suppose the good thing that he did get the Chillmore from the Netherspire Historian is that he can now play another Chillmore afterwards after seeing this first Hex. I mean, you've always got to hope that there aren't 2 Hexes. There may not even be 2 Hexes in this deck, especially considering something like Lava Burst has found its way in.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually. Who knows where that extra slot is? Lava Burst doing a very similar job to the Hex. Must be getting close to having a chance of drawing his Leroy now. Obviously, get through the deck pretty rapidly when you're playing Reno Lock. So, did I say Leroy? I meant Reno.
You just call it a Leroy Lock?
A Leroy Lock.
Reno Jenkins, that infamous Hearthstone card.
So Jambray will keep the board presence here, and looking at Mysterious's hand, there's nothing that can really AoE clear it, except obviously Chillmore with its Death Rattle. Siphon Soul is in hand to try and get his life total up to an acceptable amount, but it's looking pretty dark for him right now.
Certainly is, and that decision to trade there is down to the point that, you know, there's only really one effective AoE that's going to come out here. Twisting Nether you'd be absolutely fine with, but if he left the 3-2 up on the board, he's vulnerable to Shadow Flame in that position as well, having seen Hellfire and Demon Wrath already used. So decent decision from him in the end, but now staring down the second Chillmore, as long as he gives credit for there being a dragon in the hand, which I'm sure he does, having seen this deck played already, then suddenly he has to say bye-bye to the majority of this board.
I don't see anything other than just getting it blown up. He might be tempted to leave this up because of the Priestess, but no real point. He's going to clear it all up and then rebuild his board immediately ready for the next turn.
Yeah, I mean, Jambray just has so much gas here that he can threaten lethal turn after turn after turn after turn. He can just keep asking the question.
What a pickup.
0 mana Thing from Below comes down, so now it's Twisting Nether or nothing, essentially, from Mysterious. Although with the Leroy in hand, Shadow Flame is still a live draw for him for sure. Sylvanas as well can be used for that purpose.
Now, he has to kind of tap here and look for more, because nothing, well, we can see nothing keeps him alive.
Yeah, he may think that siphoning and playing the Twilight Drake is actually enough to set up a one more turn. He doesn't know he's going to get all of this stuff in the face. He can allow for some of it.
I think, like, even if you are in Mysterious's shoes right now and you have a suspicion that, you know, no life tap means that you lose the game next turn, I still think you have to ignore your instincts and say the only way I win this game is that, you know, play Twilight Drake, Siphon Soul, and he doesn't have it. Because, you know, tap into the AoE, which, you know, has to be specifically Twisting Nether at that point, just means, hey, we are not developing the board. So actually this
is actually fine,
right,
yeah.
Going down that line of thought, this is an even more optimistic play. So I'm totally cool with that line as well. He does lose the game immediately the turn afterwards, but I think Mysterious would have been expecting this, but understood the dynamic of what was going on, understood that he needed to take a risky play to climb back into this game.
Jambray casually wins his 5th game in a row, and he is running through this tournament in a hurry right now.
I mean, this is the man that wasn't even here last season. We have 3 members that were at this finals last season. Jambray's the new boy. He came through the qualification phase. He took actually your place, I think, Soto. And now he's here at finals, and he is making a massive impact.
Say that as if I'm supposed to be salty about it. I declined the invitation.
That's what they always say, right, Dan? That's what we've heard that one before.
Yeah, all right.
So he is now 2-0 up. So he's going into this next game. If you're Mysterious, what is the key here? Are you just continuing to queue up this Reno Dragon Warlock, or have you got to stray away from it now to try and get some wins?
It's how you feel, honestly. I mean, you've got to win with all 3 of them anyway. So he may want to make it last as long as possible, partly to get some practice and partly to shut Jambray down, but he may also want to not reveal as much information as possible, so he might go with the hardest matchup first so the other players can't see what he's queuing. That's entirely how he feels about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's from his perspective, he has to win with all the decks, and if he's going to ever be in a position where revealed information matters, he's going to have to have won with all 3 of his decks anyway, so it really just is a comfort thing, a feel thing at this point. He needs to get the momentum going again, but Jambray, incredibly impressive performance so far. I've been impressed and surprised by him. Surprised because he doesn't speak like a man who puts Dragon Egg in his decks. He's very calm and considered when he talks most of the time. You talk to like Jackie Chan, for example, who also puts Dragon Egg in his decks. He's constantly laughing and joking. He's very loud and energetic. I was expecting Jambray to be much the same when I finally got to meet him, but very considered individual, and his considered play is showing for him right now.
And he really believes in this kind of, the Egg Paladin.
He does well with it. I mean, he does well with it.
How fitting is it that he just needs 1 win with it in this series and he is in the grand final?
It's extremely fitting.
Extremely
fitting.
Clever.
Bye.
Not quite the early hand that he had, though. I mean, we saw Jambray use this last series. He obviously got an incredible starting hand. Throughout the season, we've seen Jambray use it. And when he doesn't get the starting hand, this deck is when it struggles.
Yeah, I actually don't hate this start either. I've actually played a decent chunk of this deck, and I think it is slightly underrated. I think it's underrated by 99.999% of the population and overrated by the 0.1, which is just Jambray. So it's actually like a reasonable deck, and these kind of starts that look a bit awkward are actually a lot more powerful than you might give them credit for, because this is redemption into coin Silent Knight. So there is every chance this Silent Knight goes down, is able to exist on the board, get in some damage, and when it gets taken down, it just comes back as a 2-1 Divine Shield all over again.
Especially seeing that Noble Sacrifice as well. That means next turn he can just Hero Power Noble Sacrifice, makes a very juicy turn for his mana, followed up by Defender of Argus. I mean, you're right, it didn't look like the best of hands, but the way it's worked with the coin is it's actually going to work in Jambray's favour, and once again, Mysterious has just got to search for removal.
Yeah, Mysterious also just not getting any kind of ramp going on here. Obviously, he's got 2 Nourishes in a moment, which will help a lot with that hand, but that's a long way off right now.
Again, yeah, just a really clunky looking hand from Mysterious, but again, back to the awkwardness of Jambray's apparent opening hand. You know, it's a deck that often appears awkward because primarily it doesn't play 2-drops most of the time, so opening hands tend to look awkward. You quite often have to go 1+1 on turn 2 or coin 3 into 3, so figuring out the optimal line for that can be very difficult, but this is the power turn for the deck. You play all of the 4-mana power cards, so your goal with the deck is to just win the game on turn 4, and there you go, Argus on a Divine Shield minion, plus an extra 1-1. How does Druid clean up this mess?
It's going to struggle. Just want to highlight Mysterious's ordering there that last turn. He played around those 2 secrets magnificently. Decides to Wrath the 1-1 first, which got the redemption out of the way, and then attacked into the Noble Sacrifice to get that out of the way as a 2-1.
Yep.
So not triggering the Divine Shield, not triggering the 2-1 until he had to, and shows that he's probably practiced against this, because remembering things from Secret Paladin from 9 months ago in 75 seconds probably isn't that easy.
But how many times did we play that matchup 9 months ago? I mean, every matchup on Ladder was against Secret Paladin, so I'm not entirely surprised if that is in Mysterious's head and just kind of, he knows exactly how to play around all secrets. As Jambray is taking no time at all with these turns, he knows exactly what he wants to do.
I am willing to confess that the first time I played against a Secret Paladin build in Standard, I lost the game because I played around Avenge.
Nice, well done.
Now, pro player, Ellie giggle. But you see it here, just again, I mentioned it before, all the 4-mana pumpers. Defenders of Argus, Keeper of Alderman, Blessing of Kings in there as well. Early on, when the card was released, Jambray even went as far as Silvermoon Portal in this deck, just to have even more options on that turn 4. And this really is the strategy of the deck, which is pump up onto turn 4 and then try and curve out into the power cards later on. But speaking of curving out into power cards, Mysterious has decided that it's time to flip the Yogg switch. That is his only way out of this game. You saw him deliberately ramp straight to 10 mana. Jambray threw up the little prayer in response. Everyone knows exactly what's going to happen, and yet no one has a clue what is going to happen.
Wow, that's a fair point. So Mysterious is going to take on his own challenger here and see if he can Yogg his way out of trouble.
And how many spells is this going to be? Maybe
not many.
4 or 5? I mean, Mysterious hasn't actually played many spells, but Yogg is going to drop onto the board. It needs to do something big. Blizzard's a pretty good start, to be honest.
Blizzard, please. Yeah, exactly. Never has it been more astute. But the Feral Spirits repairs the damage from the Fireball to face, because now that Argent Commander in hand is not lethal. Multi-shot is tidy as well, and he is charging his Yogg-Saron here. So that is actually a pretty effective board clear with that protection he's got himself from the Argent Commander in hand.
Yeah.
Yogg-Saron, once again.
I've had a lot of experience casting Yogg-Saron.
Wow, Sottle, they're summing it all up perfectly. Well, all I can do is say, yeah. So, why on earth? I mean, Jambray's still in a fantastic position, but he's just going to have to find a way through all this over the next couple of turns, or it could go wrong. The Druid's Armor may just be a thing over the next 2 or 3 turns.
With Feral Rage in hand, he's got big minions like Ragnaros as well to perform a threat to Jambray. He's really going to struggle with those taunts on board. This is going to be very, tough to get through.
Yeah, and of course, one of the outs that might have looked immediate in this situation would be a Consecration draw, but again, I don't know the specific list that Jambray has submitted to this tournament, but classically, he does not play Consecration at all in this deck, so direct damage is non-existent in terms of being able to punch through taunts. This deck is all about board presence, and those Argent Commanders are the really only source of damage from hand alongside the weapons.
And look at the body language difference for Jambray now. I mean, before Yogg was played, he was kind of laughing about it, smiling, but when you are punished that badly by Yogg, it is hard to take.
These are the positions, though, where a deck specialist is a million times better than somebody who's just really good at Hearthstone. Like, when you get a deck specialist in these situations, they know they've got to get 2 damage through. They usually find the out into the out play that the other players don't spot. He'll know exactly how to try and get through this wall.
I guess it's whether Mysterious is expecting something like an Argent Commander in hand. If he doesn't Feral Rage and if he doesn't build his armor up, if he's happy to kind of... I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't, but let's say in a situation where he doesn't, that's when he can be punished. I think he needs to, though.
But what you say there is also something that when you're a deck specialist, you know the mistakes that other people make into you more than people who just pick up the deck. He'll know exactly what might go wrong for Mysterious here, although it's starting to look like nothing will go wrong at all. That's what happens.
Oh, actually, the trade-in from Mysterious here is extremely important. If he does decide to go face with Yogg Saron, then it does open up more kind of angles for Jambray to win this game. But he will trade. I think that is the right play.
Yeah, it's not a great feeling, you know, 7-2 as being used as a trading tool, but he has to respect the situation. There was just a double value trade of 3/3s on the board there with that situation, but Jambray still has power turns yet to go, and classically, this challenger will pull exactly 0 secrets. Yes, it does. He usually only plays 1 copy of each in the deck, so this is just a 6-mana 6/6, and he's trying here, I can only imagine, to conceal the information that Mysterious is potentially dead from hand with the Commander and the True Silver.
Right, if he gets 1 more mana, things would be incredibly exciting. So he's just got to try and conceal that as long as possible. Maybe, yeah, there's things he can pick up next turn with his hero power that can pause on turn 9. But this Ragnaros is going to be gigantic. Can it win?
Mysterious is nodding. I think he might have got it. He has. That is a huge 50-50 for him, and now Jambray is right up against it. He needs to get damage through this taunt. He also needs to stick something to the board through this Ragnaros and any potential removal that he puts Mysterious on in his hand, and then back that up with the second True Silver charge, and that is a massive uphill task from this point.
Yeah, 1 more mana and it would actually look kind of easy. You play the True Silver, you go face for 4 with a Divine Shielded guy who doesn't care about Ragnaros, but he's got to find a way to manipulate this whole situation, and it is not going to be that easy for him.
Yeah, so just the True Silver True Silvering down the 2/2 and playing the Keeper of Old Man onto the board means this gives him maximum flexibility, right? So if there's Blessing of Kings in this build, which I assume there is, he then has Commander Blessing of Kings plus the True Silver damage from hand next turn if he draws it. If he needs to bail out and decide it's time to deal with the Ragnaros, the situation is then set up perfectly for him to do it next turn.
Well, something Mysterious may be considering is Baron Geddon into something like Living Roots just to clear the board, but then you're also worrying about the fact you're kind of deleting your own life total as well, and you need to be concerned about that. So what would you say is the optimal play here? I mean, obviously there are several decisions here for him.
I think it's Mally time. I think you drop the Mally, you Living Roots the 3/4, you bank your 8 damage to face from the Ragnaros, then next turn you have the Nourish, you then hit basically one spell damage tool from the Nourish with the Malagos sticking on board, then you're pretty much looking at lethal from that point.
Yeah, that looks like the best play. My only concern is it is 1 fewer armor, and 10 feels like a kind of key number right now.
Yeah.
So there are now outs where there wouldn't have been as many outs the other way, but it feels like the right play.
Blessing of Kings, Abusive Sergeant, Rallying Blade does not do it. That is 1 off, I believe. He can swing with the 4 from the True Silver, drop the Commander, equip the Rallying Blade, which means the Commander will get buffed and do 5, but that leaves him 1 damage off.
And it's whether he can survive this next turn as well. He's going to be... With Malagos on board, you are always going to be concerned about what is in the hand of Mysterious, especially that far left card. That Baron Geddon has been there the majority of the game. You automatically might assume it could be that second Moonfire.
So Jambray is just swinging downtown right now, but we'll see what the choice is with the Commander. Does the Commander go face? Does the Commander trade? Does he hold it back for a more powerful buff than the Rallying Blade? All of these are considerations, but I mean, the time for trading does seem to be over. It's whether you consider it worth taking that guaranteed 8 damage off the board from the Ragnaros and just hedging your bets right on the Malygos, or whether you just have to shut your eyes, pray for one turn, and just send all your damage to face.
One of the advantages of making a 1-1 is that he won't be able to take it down with his face, most likely, so he'll have to take it down with the Malygos. Just might buy you a bit of time in those borderline situations where you're nearly going to get 2-turn lethal yourself. So he makes the 1-1, and this might buy him 4 health himself, or he might just draw a swipe, which is kind of painful.
Certainly is. Swipe to the face is 9. He can't afford to hero power down the Divine Shield first, is the only awkward part of this equation in terms of setting up a guaranteed lethal. Otherwise it would be fairly straightforward. So Mysterious just considering all his options here.
Yeah, this was my worry, that I don't think there is actually a lethal potential here for Mysterious without being able to use that hero power. So then you're relying on Rag to win a 50-50 flip if you're going to leave anything on board, but you can't afford to leave anything on board. So then you're worried about what's in the hand of Jambray.
If you trade the Malygos into the 4-2 and then Drake swipe the face, no, you're still 1 off.
Yeah, I've gone through a few of those in my head while you guys have been chatting. I'm
unlucky.
Like, you're 1 off. You could do it with 11 mana as well.
Yeah.
It's just where you draw, but that'd be bizarre. But yeah.
Innovate's a big deal if he gets something to pair with it. He doesn't in the end though, so he's just going to drop the Ancient of War instead and send some of this damage through. And again, the huge taunt is a big lockout for this deck from Jambray, because there is no direct damage in most conventional lists, and the Horse Rider, sorry love, the Cavalry here is here a turn late, I'm afraid.
Yeah, the Cavalry kind of, yeah.
Don't worry, love.
I don't even know anymore.
Yeah. I was going to say he can deal with it, but I mean, you're reluctant really to take 5 damage, but I think you have to.
And the swipe is just going to end this game, and Mysterious is going to remain alive. Did choose to put himself on 2 there. Maybe a nod to what you said earlier about having people know that Jambray doesn't play Consecration in his deck.
Yeah, I mean, this deck is purely board presence based, it's purely snowball based, it's about getting that early game board state, and Mysterious did manage to expose some of the weaknesses of the deck, and this is something you do have to be careful about when you bring a deck to tournaments that you primarily play on ladder. Any weird deck has an inflated win rate on ladder.
Yes.
Because no one knows what they're playing against, they're mulliganing wrong, they don't understand how to expose your deck's toolkit and really take advantage of its weaknesses. When you play against good players in tournament, they are much better equipped to do that.
And Yogg-Saron was a big factor in that game.
That too!
We've got to say, I mean...
Yeah.
And credit to Mysterious for keeping Yogg-Saron in the deck. A lot of people have been taking it out because they don't like Yogg-Saron. Obviously now with the new effect, if it kills himself, he doesn't do any more spells. But if you can continuously just rely on him, if you can take that gamble, then credit to you. If you're going to bring it, it could have just been a 10 mana kill itself, does nothing, he loses the game. But instead now, he is 2-1 down in this series, and he has a Warlock and a Mage to work with. And actually, against this Paladin deck, I mean, if you can get the tempo with Mage that we saw Mysterious, it is a tempo Mage, you can win that game. But it is catered towards the late game of tempo Mage.
Yeah, that's right. And just go back to that Yogg just for a second that you were talking about there. Yogg is still pretty good at clearing boards. It's no longer particularly good at drawing cards or armoring up, but it's still pretty good at dealing with an enemy board. That's the one thing that didn't get overly nerfed, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a fallacy to phrase it this way, but it's almost the situation where the more minions on the other side of the board, the better it is for you, because it's just about, can I dodge killing my own Yogg-Saron for as long as possible so that I can hit Flame Strike, Twisting Nether, Blizzard, Frost Nova, all these kind of tools that you want to come out. That's exactly what we saw from Mysterious. He didn't need time to hang around. He just jammed the Blizzard first spell. He wasn't teasing anybody, but moving on. It's the Tempo Mage from Mysterious coming up against this Egg Paladin again from Jambray. And Mysterious is looking at a much more powerful hand. But look at this. What was I talking about? No 2-drops in the deck, so you have to go 1 into 1 a lot of the time. Jambray picks up the perfect combination.
Flamewaker plus Coin and Arcane Missiles can obviously do some damage against a board, but with the Egg on board, you know that that can obviously take a lot. Well, he can take 2 hits and put some more minions on board as well. So Jumbre is looking in a pretty good position.
The egg. Sottle's like just looking at the egg and pointing and things. It's like, what do you do about this?
Did I say something about winning the game on turn 4 with this deck? Like,
Right.
You just play all of them, and then you get an egg on the board. They can't deal with it. It's just such an irritating deck to come up against in a lot of situations. And Jumbre really does maximize the win rate of this deck. You know, as much as I just commented on being a deck specialist can sometimes penalize you because people will not really understand what you are bringing to the table, and you get an inflated win rate on ladder. But Jumbre on the other side just knows how to play this deck to perfection, and Mysterious here is gonna go for a reasonable risk with the Arcane Missiles Flame Waker. If everything dies, if there is a board clear here, this is huge. And I love the risk from Mysterious. He understands the dynamic of the deck that he's playing against. He knows where the power turn is. That power turn is turn 4, and he shut that turn down.
Right, and Tempo Mage, not necessarily the easiest deck to just pick up and play against a new deck. It plays very differently depending what it's up against. So he's obviously played this several times to work it out, or lots of times to work it out. Realised how those missiles interacted, because several of them went face, and he still got the clear.
Seems good. Yeah, just hit 2 on the buttons and then Arcane Blast it. That seems like the correct line of play to me.
This is where Tempo Mage can get really dangerous, and now Jambre's got to find a way to get this board back, but looking at his current cards, there is no way for him to do that at the moment. I mean, you could Horse Rider, go face. Do you trade just 2 damage into the Flame Waker, perhaps?
I mean, what does that 2 damage actually do for you in the long run? It's not like you're setting up a Consecration, right? It's just not a thing that ever comes out. I think more likely you're just leaving that thing there and just hoping you draw True Silver at some point or some other way to deal with it. Argent Commander off the top next turn will do the job as well.
Fortunately for Jambre, though, there are no spells in the Hand of Mysterious to use with this Flame Waker, but as a Drake on turn 5 in general is quite solid.
Yeah, and Jumbo would probably have had a good idea that the spells were running dry there. There's only so many spells that Mysterious can have in this deck early on with this heavy build that he's got, so he kind of had an idea there, and now he's got a decision time. I think you have to take down the Flame Waker as much as you hate it. You've got too many 1 health minions, I think.
Well, you've probably just picked up a hard read that there are no explosive spells in your opponent's hand, so maybe there was some merit to taking down the Drake. They are essentially both just spell damage creatures in the long run when you think about it. One of them is a 4/4, so I can definitely see the merit of it, but he does decide to just respect the Flame Waker in the end.
Really important that Jambre is able to start building up a board presence once again. He's going to be concerned, though, about something like a Flame Strike that might come up from Mysterious. I believe we did see a Flame Strike in his deck in the first series, so that's something that he needs to be worrying about and something he needs to be taking into consideration. He doesn't want to build up a board too big, or is it just one of those situations where you're thinking, well, if he's got Flame Strike, I lose, so I'm just going to build up what I can and jam as much to face.
The way this game's gone, I think that's absolutely the case, yeah. Because he hasn't grabbed the board early, if you can grab the board early with this deck, you can actually do the slow play Paladin thing where you have just enough on board and then you press hero power, stretch out your resources. But since he didn't get there early, he's kind of forced to just go all in right now to try and counterpunch. And that means he will get blown out by Flame Strike if it's drawn, but it's just not a card that he can play around right now.
Yeah, something that always amazes me watching Jambre play is how with like no Divine Favour or any of that sort of cards, he just always seems to have cards in his hand, despite the fact his deck empties its hand really quickly. It just doesn't... The way he manages his resources always seems to leave him just not completely short.
I mean, there is an actual legitimate science to building a mana curve. Like, talk to Firebat about this. He will go on for hours about this. And, you know, this deck plays a ton of early game, but it's also 2 challengers. 2 Argent Commanders a lot of the time, Ragnaros sometimes, Tyrion always. So your density of draws in the late game is actually quite high, and just having expensive stuff in your deck functions as card draw in a lot of situations.
Yeah, we touched on that earlier with the Acolyte of Pain and their heavy hands. It's the same sort of deal. But this deck particularly always looks like it's lighter than it actually is. Right.
So we're in another situation for Mysterious, as we saw in the first series, where he has these kind of fireballs, he has the Archmage in hand, but he can't really use them yet, and it feels bad using something like a fireball on such low-end minions. And it does mean that he will leave a board presence for Jambre here.
Yeah, the True Silver is huge for him here, though. This is the card that he's been waiting for such a long time. It's a massive card against Tempo Mage. Such an amazing tool to take care of basically all of their mid-game single-handedly. Comes down a little bit late in this situation, but Jambre still will be pleased to have it at last.
And And does he in a moment just have to go, tell you what, if you've got Flame Strike, well done?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the last turn where Flame Strike can outright blow him out.
Yeah.
If he like holds down the board for this turn, then he can actually start to play around Flame Strike if he wants. He can actually start to slow down and grind out the resource game because he's got such a board lead. So this is the last turn where it's shut your eyes and pray that there's no Flame Strike in hand. And if you manage to maintain a board lead after this point, then you can reassess the decision as to whether you want to slow down or not.
And the praying has worked, and Mysterious going with Ragnaros here, which it's going to be picking off their minions, but it's going to be doing it kind of slowly.
Yeah, there's definitely merit to just ignoring this Ragnaros. I wouldn't have been averse to maybe just Archmage into Arcane Blast, because you would have definitely removed the minion, but you also put a threat on the board that if it's not removed, then it is going to jam a lot of damage to your face. But it does look like Jambray is just going to ignore this Ragnaros. As you say, I mean, it's going to be picking them off, but it's going to be doing it very slowly, Lorinda.
Yeah, and okay, so Jambray is all in, as Sottle described a minute ago. There are still those heavy minions that will be very, very good for him, especially the Commander right now. And no Flame Strike there for Mysterious is going to leave him in a bit of a pickle.
Barn's going to come down. There's one Flame Waker left in the deck, which can be paired together nicely with this hand. That's a Sorcerer's Apprentice based on the discount that we see popping out, which means Arcane Intellect is now a potential out, and it does help him. You know, he can essentially play all the spells in his hand now thanks to that Barnes pool. But then that leaves him pretty much dry, sitting at an Antonidas that he might want to use as a win condition at some point. But he needs a way to react to this board. The Fireball takes care of the 6/6, the Arcane Blast, the 2/2, and then he's kind of relying on Ragnaros to do some work from there, trying to pick off that 3/4 to reduce the maximum amount of damage.
Yeah, that would be absolutely huge if he could hit this Keeper, because 3 into 11 is kind of a lot, and he gets the shot. And now Jambray is going to be needing to pick up something big and hefty soon, and the egg is not that.
The egg is definitely not big and hefty, and we can see Babbling Brook is in the hand of Mysterious as well. How many times across the World Championships have we seen that do some real damage? I mean, it's one of those cards that if you have confidence in it and you put it in your deck, it just does seem to pull great spells.
He wants to cast a spell, man, so...
Don't give me this heart of the cards crap, Gaskin.
He wants to cast a spell, that's all he wants from life, so... Got to give him the chance occasionally.
Yeah, the Dragon Egg pull here from Jambray. I mean, his opening hand egg, sorry, from Jambray. You know, I was kind of laughing at how powerful it was, how hard to deal with, but suddenly on the flip side, when you draw a 1-mana 0/2 on a 10-mana turn, you suddenly get that feeling of, oh yeah, this is a card I've put in my deck on purpose. You're seeing both sides of the coin from Jambray's deck building decisions here.
Flame Lance coming out of Babbling Brook. It's not the best, but it's still more removal, which he may need, but to be honest, Mysterious is actually looking in a pretty commanding position now. He just needs to just try and remove as much as he can of the board, and then hope that Jambray doesn't draw into anything. I mean, a Tyrion would be quite good, but there is damage now coming from Mysterious to threaten lethal himself in a couple of turns.
Yeah, this Tempo Mage usually ends the game fast when the end comes, and we are very, very close to that. Accidents can happen against this deck, but it's starting to look good for Jambray, but that is not a good shot if you're Mysterious as Rag.
Ooh, the snap play on the Argent Commander. Suddenly, Jambray is right back in this game from his perspective, but how much damage is coming back the other way with the Antonidas consolidated on the board? There is 2 fireballs and a ping at least. So that is 12, 13, 18, 19, 21 damage can all go directly to the face. So not quite there, but the Flame Strike pickup now is just equally huge.
He's going to leave Jambray with chances with weapons for Outstone. I don't think we've seen many yet, so there's at least 1 True Silver and 1 of
Rallying
the other things.
Blade.
Yeah, Rallying Blade.
Argent Commander number 2 as well. The Horse Riders that we've seen won't quite get him here in that spot. Silent Knight is a huge whiff, and Jambray just staring at lethal on the board. No way out. Jambray's signature deck. The deck that made him famous all the way back at HCT Winter Prelims. The deck that he's stuck with since then could potentially be his downfall.
But this is the thing, right? Both of these players are kind of deck specialists. We had Mysterious with his Reno luck that he always brings, and now we've got Jambray with his Paladin. Eventually, Mysterious was able to get a win, and that would say a lot to me. If one of the, well, whichever player wins, they can kind of hang that above the other player to be like, ha, I brought a weird deck and it beat your weird deck.
Wow. Which one's going to crack?
Is that another egg pun, Neil?
Would I do that?
Yes.
Yes, I would.
Yes,
Yes, it was.
How long have you been holding that is the real question.
About 3 minutes, and then take it out.
Sibber.
All of these egg puns are scrambling my brain.
So Mysterious is left with the Warlock. We saw it earlier. It is, of course, the Reno lock. It is going to go up against the Egg Paladin. This is quite fitting. What a way to end this series, and it's been a great series, to be fair. Jambray is just going to kind of cast away the thoughts of the last 2 games. They haven't really gone in his favour, but we know if Egg Paladin can start strong, it can usually finish strong too.
So, Sottle, in all the casting you've been doing over the last year, in your opinion, how many times have you seen Egg Paladin take on Reno lock?
Not too many, honestly, but you know, Mysterious will be feeling pretty comfortable. He's already poached a couple of games from Egg Paladin at this
Poached my joke. I've been waiting on that one.
Alright,
Wow.
I think we're done. Let's talk about Hearthstone again. Egg is in the opening hand once again. Jambray, actually, I believe, has just kept this whole hand. He's kept the Challenger. This is not something that I found myself doing when I played this deck unless I had the coin with this particular build. Definitely, it became almost a snap keep with the old version of Secret Paladin because the whole deck revolved around it so much, but honestly, Jambray knows this deck much better than me, so I guess this is something I'm going to have to start doing in the future, is just keeping Mysterious Challenger on the play.
Yeah, I'll do that every time I play Egg Paladin from now on, I guarantee it.
0 times.
There was a little bit of a smirk as well from Jambray, because as soon as he kept it, Competitive Spirit came out afterwards, and that's always frustrating. As you said earlier, you only really run 1 copy of each secret, and looking in Mysterious's hand, there's a fair amount of removal this time.
He's going to need it, though. There's a curve beautifully here for Jambray, and he's actually having to take his time. He's got so many options already to set up this Competitive Spirit. The next 2 or 3 turns, he's going to be able to spam the board with all kinds of stuff, and then he's going to get to refuel if it's dealt with Mysterious Challenger. This definitely has potential as a hand.
Yeah, he has just drawn a couple of irritating cards, though. The Competitive Spirit is a card that he wants in his deck for the Challenger. The Tyrion is a card that he wants in his deck for the Barnes. So he has had a couple of irritating pulls, but his curve is looking reasonable. But as powerful as Barnes has shown itself to be in the recent meta, it's actually probably the weakest 4-mana play in this deck a lot of the time, unless it hits Tyrion. There you go.
Blessing of Kings, for instance.
Blessing of Kings does the job a heck of a lot better when you have a Dragon Egg on the board as well as a Divine Shield minion. It's pick your poison time here from Jambray, but look at the mess you can make as you start cracking open this egg. Dragon hatchlings come out, you start to jam the face, and now you're resistant to all possible AoE.
And this is the worrying thing. I mean, this is exactly what we were speaking about earlier, with Mysterious tailoring his lineups to deal with aggro, but sometimes the removal just isn't enough, and you need to be drawing that Reno, but at the moment, it's not in his hand.
Yeah, it's one thing to deal to tailor your aggro, your decks to deal with aggro, if I can get the words out. But the other thing is, this aggro is tailored to deal with the control, with the Divine Shields and the eggs and such like. It can fight back against those AoEs.
Barnes Competitive Spirit here. I mean, Mysterious has just essentially turned the Hellfire in his hand face up with that Demon Wrath setup. Yeah. So Jambray said, okay, my opponent's going to Hellfire next turn. How do I punish Hellfire most efficiently? And this play that he's made, hitting the Squire, is actually huge, because now the Squire lives, the Barnes lives, a 2-1 from the Dragon Egg potentially lives from his perspective as well. So
and Mysterious hits himself in the face for 3.
And then suddenly the Competitive Spirit buff goes off, and there is, what, 9 damage coming back straight back on the board, plus the Horse Rider, that is 11, so he's almost already pushing lethal if Hellfire were to come down here.
It's definitely one of those situations where if Mysterious doesn't draw Reno, then he is out of this game. But even if he does draw Reno, there is so much presence on the board for Jambray, it's going to be extremely difficult to get back into. Looks like he is actually just going to use the Bookworm here. And does that leave lethal on board?
The Competitive Spirit is going to proc, which means there is going to be lethal with the Horse Rider, I believe. 8, 11, 13 damage. Oh, double Horse Rider ends up going in. Yeah, I think the first Horse Rider was actually 1 off, but Jambray picks up the second one. His Egg Paladin does get over the line in the end, and it's actually Mysterious's Dragon Warlock that did not get there in the end, Gaskin.
Yeah, congratulations to Jambray, who will be heading to the grand final. And I mean, somewhat deserved. I think he would have felt quite hard done by, especially after the Yogg. It's nice to see him get through, because that was basically a one game. Let's not beat around the bush. He was almost there. Don't you raise your eyebrows at me like, nah, Yogg's great, but yeah, I know what you mean. You hate Yogg as well. We all hate Yogg.
That's good. Whoa, hold on. When have I ever said the words, Yogg is great?
Just there.
Oh, just there. Damn it.
We got him. Well done, Gaskin. I knew you'd get him to say
well
at some
played.
point.
But a great performance from Jambray, nevertheless.
Very much so,
I mean, it was looking a little bit dicey as we got to the end, but I think overall, out of the two kind of specialist decks, I think the Secret Paladin does win over the Dragon Control Reno Paladin, which it's a good deck when it works, right? But it does struggle. I mean, what are your guys' opinions? Okay, say you had to take one of these decks to a tournament, which would you rather take?
Secret Paladin.
Yeah.
Easily, like Snap Cool. Like I said, I've actually played a decent chunk of the deck, and I think it's decent. It's not something that I would choose to bring as part of a tournament lineup, but it is a deck that I've had a very successful ladder win rate with. But I've kind of explained the reasoning for that a little bit, is that people don't really know what they're doing against it. But the deck works. Like it is well designed. It has a solid, consistent game plan, and it executes it very well.
I did feel that the Reno was more of a first round surprise value deck as well, which worked for that. Just there's an element of that, so that's why I paused in answering the question, because if it's a one game only event, I might go with a Reno deck. We did see, Life Coach took Eye for an Eye in one of his decks once, because he knew he would only have to play it twice, and that sort of thing. So it's a harder question than maybe it seems at first, but I think the Egg Paladin is the better deck. And Jambray into that final where he will only have to win one of 2 games.
Well, yeah, Jambray is into the final, and I believe we can take a look at the bracket as well and see who he might be facing off against after everything is played out. Obviously now, Mysterious will drop into that loser's bracket, and he will play the winner of Ball Control versus Hello Leroy. As you can see, the bracket is on your screen there. Jambray did win 3-2 against Mysterious, finds himself in the grand final in our loser's bracket. Playing for 4th place will be Ball Control versus Hello Leroy. What a slobber knocker that is going to be. Crazy if you ask me that is going to be for 4th place. But the real question that I want to ask you guys, can Jambray go on and win this whole tournament?
Yeah, I mean, he's just shown that he can win it, right? He's beaten 2 of the 3 people in it already.
I think
solid answer.
Still questions about the Egg Paladin, maybe, you know, when he plays up, if he is forced to match up against Ball Control specifically, I would imagine those two have practiced together with that deck involved a lot, so if anyone knows how to play against it, it's maybe Ball Control, so we'll see if any cracks appear in the Egg Paladin when it comes up against a stronger... You like that one, huh?
I don't even know anymore.
But, I mean, it's a serious point. It is a deck that can get exposed, because you saw little twinges of it from Mysterious there, where he went all in to clear the board going into turn 4. That's really something that you do need to do against the deck. You need to take that snowball away from them at all costs, similar to playing against an aggressive tempo mage. So if Ball Control is really on point with those kinds of strategies, and those two end up coming up against each other, that could be a little bit of a weakness for Jambray. But I'm super excited about the losers bracket match, honestly.
Yeah.
It's either our favorite, probably, going out 0-2, or it's Hello Leroy 0-2 repeating from last season. So either way, we're actually looking at a pretty crazy event happening.
Yeah,
and Leroy's not a patient man, is he? He's not going to want to wait another 3 or 4 months to have another 0-2 attempt.
Well, it's definitely going to be an incredible losers bracket match, and that will be the next match that we do have. We are going to go for a 5-minute break, and when we're back, we will be having Ball Control versus Hello Leroy and seeing who gets eliminated from the tournament.